Welcome into Illini Drive. My name is Josh Pietsch, joined alongside with Nithin, Reddy. Nithin, how we doing?
Oh, we're doing pretty good. We're doing, you know what? No, we're doing fantastic.
I think so too.
After yesterday, I did not. I'm so glad I was wrong. On Monday, I said Michigan was going to win. I was right a little bit because I thought it would be low scoring, and it was, especially in the first half. But oh man, I've never been happier to be wrong because the Illini pulled off an amazing program statement, whatever you want to call it, win.
The Illini yesterday were amazing. Usually I'll take it back a few weeks to when Illinois defeated Iowa. Watching as a fan, I luckily wasn't covering that game. After the game, we win by 5 at home against a team, in my opinion, we should have beat. I was going crazy. I was going nuts. Like, what a great win. Honestly, when the clock hit 0 in the second half yesterday, I was like, all right, on to the next one. Because that's how much Illinois dominated.
Oh, yeah.
It was not close. I mean, when they were up 28 points with 9 or so minutes left, I almost didn't believe it. Like, I've talked to a few guys today that agreed with me. Like, did you feel like the game ended? I was just kind of like, did that really happen?
Yeah, it was definitely a euphoric feeling, but also one where you're just stunned, even as a fan of Illinois, because you go into this game thinking, all right, we don't have Io. We're coming off a game where we almost let Wisconsin win and come back late, even though we dominated throughout.
Mm-hmm.
So the way you win is a close game, comes down to the wire. Trent Frazier makes a couple plays, Kofi dominates, and you pull off maybe like a 5-point win. But it was never really close aside from the first 10 minutes of the game.
I was going to say first 10 minutes were pretty equal.
Yeah.
Illinois up 2 or 3 maybe.
Yeah, and it was mostly because Illinois just played sloppy offense. 3 for 15 shooting from the start. Turned it over, I think, 3 of their first 5 possessions of the game. But then once the offense started going, the defense carried the way. I mean, it's the best defensive performance I've ever seen Illinois play that I can recall.
I think that earlier this year, Kofi, after an impressive performance, I'm not going to remember who, but he said in a media conference, I think that we can be the best defensive team in the nation. 2 games later, we gave up 80 points to a middle of the Big Ten team. And I'm thinking to myself, how can these guys expect to be the best defensive team in the Big Ten when you're giving up 80 points to a team that has no business scoring 60? 3, 4, 5 weeks later, Illinois legitimately looks like the best defensive team in the country, maybe aside from Baylor, because what they did, yesterday, and obviously we'll talk about it, Iowa wasn't playing, but the defense was amazing. Holding Franz Wagner to 2 points, holy moly.
I mean, Zach Griffith outscored Franz Wagner in the last 39 minutes of the game, which is insane. It's insane to hear. And it's insane that you look at the score 76-53, and it almost seems like it's closer than it should have been, because it probably should have been like a 30-plus point blowout.
Absolutely.
It's just that you pull your starters late, and then they start to claw away. I was so impressed by the perimeter defense because Trent Frazier, everyone that's an Illini fan knows Trent Frazier is a good defender.
Yes.
If you don't, you're not watching the games then.
No.
But he was so dominant against Mike Smith and Eli Brooks, and he would not give an inch. It was amazing to see. And then the Kofi Coburn Hunter Dickinson matchup, where I expected Dickinson to get his points, and I expected Kofi to get his points.
Mm-hmm.
Kofi didn't play great offensively. He only took 10 shots, made 6 of them, but he shut Hunter Dickinson down completely. And it shows you that if we see a rematch in the future, that Kofi is a good matchup against Michigan, because we thought Luka Garza, after he struggled against Michigan, maybe they have the ability to stifle big men. But on the flip side, I mean, Kofi'd.
He Kofi'd. I mean, only 6 points for the freshman Dickinson. He was 1 for 8 from the field, 4 free throws. And one of those fouls, by the way. I mean, I know that Illinois...
Huh? Are you thinking of the hook?
Maybe. I know that us Illinois fans like to complain about the Revs a lot, but what I'm saying is, my point is Kofi was awesome, but then something you hit on just a minute ago, Nithin, you said the perimeter defense. I want to talk about the threes that Michigan took. They attempted 7 threes. Illinois made 6. That amazes me. Like, Michigan, they're so long and lengthy, right? Like, they're wings players between Livers, Wagner, whoever, right? Like, that's their strength. They only attempted 7 threes. They made 2 of them. 6 points on threes.
Yeah, and part of it was because they were focusing a lot inside, which I think if this game is played again, they don't do that, because it was a lot of what's their big guy? Austin Davis.
Yeah.
And then Hunter Dickinson. They just isolated them. And Jay Bell's talked about it during the game, how Michigan was kind of stagnant throughout. And it's partially because Illinois just shut down driving lanes, but also because they were force feeding the post. And as a result, guys like Franz Wagner and Isaiah Livers didn't really get in rhythm throughout the night.
Yeah, I want to credit Jay Billis, by the way. I thought Jay Billis did an awesome job on yesterday's game. I thought that was great. But, yeah, I mean, the defense just, I don't think, like you've said it, I've said it, we can't say enough about it. 2 years ago, Underwood, right, he totally flipped his defensive scheme, right? They used to be all up in the passing lanes, causing all these turnovers. And then I think it was right before the 2019-2020 season when Brad said, we got to make this adjustment because if we ever want to win a Big Ten title, we can't play like that. At first, you're kind of like, okay, like the efficiency isn't great last year. This year, it's kind of in between. But these last 3 games, it's just been like nothing I've ever seen before from Illinois.
Yeah, they're embracing their personnel because you have some guys that can get in the passing lane like Trent Frazier, but most of your players are long, lengthy players that ideally can guard wings really well. And we saw Jacob Grandison, DeMonte Williams. They were phenomenal guarding Franz Wagner and Isaiah Livers. And it's a big reason, even though they combined for 10 points together, they were huge in this game. They were instrumental. And then you add in Trent Frazier I think this is his best game.
That was the best game of Trent's life.
Because offensively, I think Iowa was actually better. His first half against Michigan was kind of a struggle. He turned it on completely in the second half. But defensively, he changed the game in so many ways. He took away everything easy, and some of the steals he made, like the one late in the first half, huge.
Yeah, no, Trent was awesome. I mean, defensively, like, look what he did to, like, Marcus Carr. The fact that he wasn't, like, a semifinalist for Defensive Player of the Year is incredible in my mind, honestly, but he was great. Defense, awesome. So then, obviously, let's turn to the offense now, and obviously Trent was amazing, but we've also got to talk about Andre Curbelo.
We got to.
He was amazing yesterday. So much fun to watch.
Yeah, and this guy's a star in the making at this point.
Really?
I mean, he's doing some incredible things, and I think the fact that Io got hurt at this time is really helpful for Curbelo's development because we saw a midseason slump, and now he's really turned it around and is playing winning basketball.
I think that one huge key for Curbelo is the turnovers, and yesterday he only had 2 of them. And when he is making passes the way he does, he only had 2 assists, but we know the kind of passer that he is. If he's limiting his turnovers and handling the ball, I mean, he scored 17 points. Like, he's so shifty, he's starting to get to the rim because people are expecting those passes. Obviously, when he's coming in, the comparison that some people made was like a Cassius Winston type of point guard, and he's not there as a shooter yet, but man, his passing is just so fun to watch.
Yeah, you speak of his shooting. I'd love to see that develop because if he develops a jump shot, we're talking about a potential Big Ten Player of the Year caliber player in 2-3 years, it's very exciting to hear because we already have one. We see what Io has done to transform this team.
And the other freshman I want to mention, he only had 6 points, but everyone knows how important Adam Miller is to this team right now. He hit a couple threes, especially including the huge step back. Was that I think it was in the first half. But still, like, the way he hit it, like, that's what put Illinois up. No, maybe it was in the second half. Yeah, because it put them up 18 or 19, and that might have been the first moment where I was like, holy moly, Illinois might win this thing.
Yeah, and the thing is, you look at his box score, and you're like, 2 for 7 shooting, 4 boards, 6 points. But the 2 threes he hit were monumental. It was that deep one where Curbelo missed the turnaround fadeaway in the first half, and then you're like, okay, Illinois got something going. And then you talked about that step back. It felt like we are winning this game once you see that play.
I 100% agree. I was watching in my house, and all of us usually have like one moment in the game for a win that I can remember where we all react the same. And that Miller 3 absolutely did it. It was awesome. And then another guy that I thought hit a pretty big 3 was someone who made 25 of them in a row before the game, Grandison. He had a nice corner. I mean, you look at Grandison, right? 1 for 1 from 3, 1 for 2 from the field, 3 points. But he's so much more than that. Those 31 minutes were 31 very important minutes yesterday.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Jacob Grandison does not get enough credit. I don't know about you, but ever since he's gotten put into the starting lineup, I've been so impressed by what he's done. Josh, like, what do you have to say about some of the smaller things that he does? Because the box score, it doesn't show fully what he brings to the table.
I mean, effort points don't go onto a box score, right? Look at this. 6 rebounds, 3 of them are offensive.
Mm-hmm.
That is awesome. Now, Illinois is pretty good at offensive rebound. I mean, they had 12 of them yesterday, which is pretty cool. But 3 offensive rebounds. You see the hustle plays he makes. He's always on the floor going around. He's a good passer. He's smart. You can tell his basketball IQ is really, really high. That's part of the reason Brad liked him so much at Holy Cross. I mean, it's impossible to say what he's done for the team. Without him, they would not be this good. Not at all.
Yeah, and the great thing is that he's kind of like a little bit bigger version of DeMonte.
Yeah.
And the two of them together are the perfect glue guys for this roster because you get games like this. You get games where it's a 3-headed monster. It's Kofi Coburn, Andre Curbelo, Trent Frazier. So everyone else has to pick up the slack and do the little things, which is exactly what we saw throughout this game.
Yeah, I totally agree. And then someone else, I thought had a very important, he only played 15 minutes, took 3 shots, had 4 points, is Georgie. I think Georgie did a really good job when he was in for Kofi when he was in a little bit of foul trouble.
Yeah, if we talk about Adam Miller, sort of timely buckets, that Georgie spin move on Austin Davis was huge.
That was awesome.
It was a great move, and it was coming off of a nice stop on the defensive end. Georgie, we're probably never going to see the double-digit score consistently that we did his freshman year, but he's done a great job lately. And this game, when Kofi got in foul trouble, he stepped up tremendously because Michigan could have gone on a run with Hunter Dickinson and Austin Davis, but Georgie stood strong in the paint.
Absolutely. I mean, Davis and Dickinson, I think you said they combined for 15 points when some people expected Dickinson to have 20 alone. So that just shows, because we know Kofi didn't play the whole game. He only played 22 minutes.
Yeah, but Davis played pretty well.
Yeah,
considering that.
He really did. And then Georgie comes in for 15. And like I said, I thought that he was fantastic for the minutes he played. Obviously, Coleman had to play a little bit of big guy defense. Coleman's still, gaining weight, kind of learning the game. He's a freshman. But junior year Georgie is what I thought we were going to see last year from him. And I just think that after, a subpar year, sophomore year, missing layups against Michigan State, he's really, really filled his position nicely.
Yeah, I know Kofi's probably coming back. I think that's a fair.
You think Kofi is coming back?
I think he is.
Interesting.
At this point, I'm just gonna give the other side of it though. Let's say he goes.
Right.
What does Georgie's role become on this team now?
It's a great question, right? Because a lot of people are going to say, oh, freshman year Georgie, he'll be able to do it. But then his defense on big guys until yesterday has been subpar.
Yeah.
Like, I remember when he was trying to cover Xavier Tillman against Michigan State last year, and it didn't work out for him at all.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, the Kofi thing's another discussion. That's something we got to talk about because
we don't have to worry about that at the moment.
No, we don't. I think that their tournament run's going to have a lot to do with that. But no, I think that Georgie is molding in. If he needs to play big guys senior year, I mean, I expect Georgie to be here 5 years actually. But for his final year, if he's got to play some center on a team with some amazing guards, I think he'll be okay.
Yeah, especially offensively. The questions have always been defensively with him as a starter. But Josh, this win is, as I said, it's a statement win. It's a huge win. It's the biggest win against the top 2 team on the road, I think, in NCAA history since the AP polls.
I think since '85, they said. I think it was Villanova was involved in it, but still, it was.
Yeah. And where does this put Illinois in terms of the tournament? Do you think it locks them into the 1 seed, or what do they have to do to pretty much lock themselves in? Because the top 3, it seems like we know Gonzaga, we know Baylor, and I'm fairly certain Michigan's going to be a 1 seed at this point.
I totally agree with pretty much everything you said. As far as Illinois goes, their win today, 100%. Not only the 4th 1 seed, by the way, the 3rd 1 seed, I think, is where Illinois sits right now.
Really?
Yes, I do think that the committee would give Illinois the 3rd overall 1 seed. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They would be on Baylor's side, I think. But even if they're not, pretty much the same thing in my eyes, because you just want to get to a Final Four, but the win today puts them there. In my eyes, no matter what happens in the Big Ten tournament, if Illinois wins Saturday against Ohio State, which we'll talk about later, I think that locks it up. No problem. You're a 1 seed. You agree?
Yeah, I'd agree with that, especially since you'll have wins against Ohio State, Michigan, and Iowa, which are huge, and 2 wins against Wisconsin. Your only losses in the Big Ten are home loss against Ohio State, road loss against Michigan State, lost to Maryland, and lost to Rutgers very early in the season when Rutgers was a completely different team.
Of course.
None of those are really terrible losses. The worst one's Maryland, but Maryland's beat some good teams.
I was going to say, Maryland does. That's kind of who Maryland is, right? Go on the road, beat Wisconsin, beat Illinois. I know they did it to another top team as well.
They won at the barn.
They won at the barn.
Team to win at the barn.
Yeah, so I obviously, as dedicated a fan as I am, I'm upset with all those losses. Yes. I think that Illinois should be a one-loss team to Baylor because Baylor was better, than us back then. I'd argue it now, but
I still think the Rutgers loss is fair.
That's pathetic.
It was one of those games where like Rutgers just shot out of their minds. And I think that happens.
Ron Harper Jr. doesn't miss against Illinois. I think Illinois fans have learned that the hard way.
Oh yeah, last 2 seasons he's been phenomenal against us.
So you asked me about seeding then, so I'll ask you, if Illinois loses at Ohio State, let's say so we haven't even talked about Io not being there, but let's say Io comes back, it's at Ohio State, lose a close competitive game. What does Illinois have to do in the Big Ten tournament to lock up a 1 seed?
I think it becomes a game of basically chicken against Ohio State. You have that win against Iowa and Michigan, as I said, and Iowa's kind of reeled of late. Although they got a huge win against Ohio State,
they did.
I would say that you would either have to make the finals or finals of the Big Ten tournament, and as long as you're not facing Ohio State, you should be in. Even semifinals, you should probably be fine. But if Ohio State wins the Big Ten tournament and they either beat us or we don't make it to like the finals-ish range, I would say Illinois is going to be in.
I think that if Illinois loses on Saturday, which we'll talk about how I feel about that, after break, and they make it to the finals of the Big Ten championship, they're in. No question about it. If they make it to the semifinals, that's where, it's going to be a super, super tough decision for the committee because Illinois fans are going to be like, our wins are better. I do think that Illinois has a lot more respectable losses than Ohio State has. Like, remember when they lost to Northwestern at the beginning of the year? That one's really, really bad. They might have, did they lose to Indiana? Maybe not. I haven't taken a look at Ohio State's schedule in a little bit. But either way, I think that Ohio State's a great team. I think Illinois...
They lost to Purdue. I know that.
They did lose to Purdue.
I mean, that's not a bad loss.
That's not. And Purdue just beat Wisconsin. I don't think Wisconsin's very good, though.
Wisconsin's not good.
I can't believe they stayed in the top 25 this past week, how they only dropped to 25.
It's crazy. I mean, they've lost, I think, 5 of 7 games, and they're still somehow at the bottom of the AP poll every single week.
The AP loves Wisconsin. They always have. I mean, one of the Illinois Twitter guys, Robert Rosenthal, I think it was, tweeted before the rankings come out, like just a bunch of funny stuff, and like somehow Wisconsin's going to stay in the top 25, and in the comments, everyone's like, oh, ha, 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 no way. They don't love Wisconsin that much, and then what do you know? They're still in the top 25.
Ohio State did lose to Minnesota, although it was at home for Minnesota, which it's kind of hard to compare this year because Minnesota's 2 different teams when it goes on the road versus when it's at home.
Hey, what did Illinois do at the barn?
Exactly. I mean,
31.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we'll see. All right. I think we're going to take a quick break real quick. But when we get back, we're going to preview that Ohio State game and talk a little bit more about Illinois' tournament seeding chances. That's next on Illini Drive. Welcome back to Illini Drive. We just got finished talking about Illinois' big win over Michigan without Iota Sunu. They won 76-53 last night. Huge win. And now upcoming for a rematch that Illinois lost at State Farm Center earlier in the year, they've got Ohio State, who personally, as an Illinois fan, I do not want to play right now. But I think it's time that they can have back-to-back statement wins, which would be pretty cool.
Yeah, and this is an important game because it's, as we talked about before, it tells the committee whether you can play with Ohio State. But the tough thing is that this is a hard matchup for Illinois, especially because of E.J. Liddell.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, E.J. Liddell, it's been 2 straight times they've played him, right? He kills us. It's terrible. They go last year, which was actually a really good game that Illinois played for about 36, 37 minutes until the final couple minutes there. Liddell makes some plays, whatever. He had a career high. Illinois lose by, 8-10 maybe? And then this year, obviously Ohio State took the 15-point lead in the first half, and the whole time, whether it was inside or outside, E.J. Liddell just torched Kofi. He torched the whole entire team, but mainly Kofi. And if Liddell's playing like that, that will make it extremely tough for Illinois to win on Saturday, I think.
Yeah, it's important to note that he's not a fantastic three-point shooter. I think he's around 35% on the season. But against Illinois, it was a tough go. I'm going to try to pull up the numbers. But Liddell was able to just stretch the floor. And it's one of the main problems that Kofi has, aside from shooting, obviously, is defending the perimeter. And it's why Luka Garza, I'm surprised, doesn't take more threes against Illinois because he's going to get open ones. But against Ohio State, Liddell went 6 for 9 from three. From two. 4 for 7 from three.
Yeah.
Which was hard, especially early because Ohio State got off to a big, big lead. And they really were able to pull it out late because they had such a large early lead. A great Illinois comeback in the second half. But in the first half, you can't let this game get away because we saw it in game one.
Yeah, obviously, the famous Illinois comeback gets cut short. I feel like we've seen that a million times within the last 4 years. Probably I can remember since Trent Frazier got here. The first one, I don't know if you'd remember, the game was against Notre Dame. They're down like 15 the whole game, and Trent missed a three at the buzzer to win. But we've seen a million of those. They did it in perfect Illinois fashion. But I think that the second half, the way they played, is very encouraging, especially how they've played the last two games for what we're going to see Saturday. Because I think they haven't figured out a little bit. I think that Ohio State not having a true center no one on that team should be able to cover Kofi. Like, it just doesn't make sense to me. So that is definitely, I think, in Illinois' favor for a rematch. It's hard to beat a team twice.
Do you think it's a big Kofi game then? Because
should be.
Kofi, he's had some good games. Nebraska, he was solid. Wisconsin, he was solid. But he hasn't had the signature game like a Minnesota type game that we kind of expected to see with Io out.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that it was more Kofi's job to match or play a little bit better than Dickinson, which we obviously saw, and I think Kofi did a great job, but more so than what I expected against Michigan on Saturday. I definitely do expect a big Kofi game. But now, obviously, the main thing is that we're expecting Io to be back, right?
So are we expecting that? Because
I do think so.
I do think this is probably the target game to bring Io back. You give him a little bit of time to get back into form before the Big Ten tournament, and you should be ready to go. But the concerning thing is that we haven't gotten too many updates about what's going on. And if we're playing the rumor mill, it seems like a concussion may be in play, which is kind of scary considering the severity of the injury.
Would he have been okay? So let's throw it back over 24 hours ago to like about noon yesterday when Illinois basketball decided to post a picture of Io DeSunmu warming up. I really thought that meant that he was going to play. Obviously, he didn't. I'd keep it the exact same way because Illinois pulled it off. Why'd they do that? Because would he be warming up if he had a concussion? Was it really smart to post if he wasn't going to play? Did they not know if he was going to play yet? I don't know.
Yeah, that's fair. And it seemed based on the way he was just standing and cheering on the sideline that he wasn't like out of it, or he wasn't in a state of mind where he couldn't have played. It seemed more like an abundance of caution, which is a good sign for the Ohio State game. My concern is just that it's a scary injury, and you don't want to rush it, and you really want to take your time because, let's face it, even if Illinois loses, they still have a fairly good shot at getting the 1 seed. It's not a must-win game, but it would just be nice to have Io back in the lineup.
It would be really nice. So now, before we preview the game a little bit more, I want to just ask you about what bringing Io back is going to mean, because let's be honest, the offense has not slowed down since Io left, and the efficiency ratings, they don't look too bad. Now, obviously, Io is not a ball hog. He's a good passer. He has a very high floor IQ. He does it all. Defense, offense, Io is, in my opinion, the National Player of the Year.
Totally
that
agree.
being said, the offense the last 3 games, especially against Wisconsin and Michigan, has looked balanced. People look comfortable, and they've performed well. So, in my opinion, when Io comes back, we're going to see one of two things. The one that I'm hoping for is that Trent continues to play at the level he is. Miller plays with the confidence he has been. And Io just comes back angry, and Illinois can dominate and be one of the best teams in the country. But I'm also a little afraid that maybe they've gotten a little used to each other, and we're going to see their rhythm off a little bit. Maybe they won't be as efficient. Obviously, I'm hoping for the former, but I definitely think the latter is a possibility. What do you think?
I think that's a fair concern, and I think you can counteract that by giving him sort of putting your toes in water, sort of like
Okay.
where you just bring him back easily. He maybe plays like 25 minutes instead of his usual 33, 34 minutes, and you get to run your offense with him, but you also get the Andre Curbelo action because Andre Curbelo has picked up so much lately from the Nebraska game where he nearly got a triple-double to last night when he was so dominant and carried the Illini offense throughout stretches. I agree with you. I don't want to see that go away. I just think you can morph it into something better because we've seen Andre Curbelo at times be sloppy with the ball, be undisciplined. He's even said he kind of plays down to opponents, and he's working on that still. But if we can get the Andre Curbelo that will split a defense and run and break a full court press into a layup, I think it can work well with Io. It just allows more freedom for Io to play off ball because especially before his injury, he was kind of the guy every possession for multiple games. And that's not exactly what I want him to do because he's a great cutter and he's great shooting the ball.
I hope that Illinois' play recently has just been like, okay, we've known all along, like I said, I've said it before, I'll say it again. Io's the National Player of the Year in my eyes, and he has pretty much brought his A-plus game almost to the table every single day, which has been awesome. So I hope that this team performing the way they are right now means all that they needed to do was have the role players and everyone not named Io or Kofi reach their peak, figure out how to play with the team, and bam. So in that case, Io comes in, Illinois should beat Ohio State by 10 or 15 on the road on Saturday. And like I said, I really hope that happens. Maybe it'll take, 10, 15 minutes to, mesh him back in, get him comfortable. I just really hope that Io doesn't come back and other guys don't feel as confident making their efficiency and their balance not what it was these last 3 games.
The thing is, it's going to take a little bit away from them. You have to expect that because Adam Miller and Andre Curbelo have had freedom that they really haven't had the entire season because there's responsibility on Io's shoulders and Kofi. Kofi's just going to keep doing what he's doing. Like that's the exact same numbers he's putting up. That's fine. But Curbelo's not going to be as ball dominant. And I hope with that he doesn't push it a little bit. Mm-hmm. But I also hope that he still understands his best mode of playing is attacking the rim. He's best when he's trying to get to the rim and he's making plays around the rim. My concern is that maybe he might start settling and might start getting back into taking some tough mid-range jumpers. But I think the two can work together. It's just about not being afraid and not being worried that you're going to get pulled. Because there does seem to be times with Adam Miller especially where he's afraid to do anything but spot up and shoot threes because that's not his role. But he's best when he's cutting to the basket. He's best when he's getting off the dribble. We saw it against Nebraska. He's also a great shooter, and it opens up the floor for him to do it because there are very few players that play basketball that can just stand in one spot for an entire game and be comfortable doing that. The greatest shooters in the world even struggle with that.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that the first couple of games of the year, and even against Ohio for that little, little in-house tournament at State Farm, and then fast forward to the first half of the Nebraska game, and Adam Miller's head, he had that confidence, right? Like, I'm the guy, I can be aggressive, and we will succeed when I do that. Look, that's exactly what happened. His first half against Nebraska, I think, is the most impressed I've been with him all year. And then sometimes, he'll miss a shot or two. Io goes on a run, and I think his confidence just lowers. So if a guy like Adam Miller can have that confidence, not be afraid to pull up, because his pull-up jumper is beautiful. I think it's pretty. I think I've seen it go in more than I've seen it miss. And I think that speaks a lot to the type of player he is. So if he's aggressive, if Trent stays hot, I mean.
That's your number 3 then. The number 3 we've been looking for the entire season.
Yes.
That is this Trent Frazier.
And then, we know Kofi, he's proved it time and time again how good he can be. And then Io, what he brings to the table. If this all continues to happen with Grandison obviously staying aggressive, Curbelo picking up his game a little bit, and DeMonte doing what he does, that's when Illinois fans, I think, for the first time can really say, hey, we can actually win a national championship, and no one would be surprised.
Yeah, I totally agree. The one thing I'd preface is that this is not a 1-to-1 game with Michigan.
Oh,
Michigan
no.
is better than Ohio State, but
Yes.
Ohio State's a tougher matchup for Illinois
Completely agree.
because they love to shoot threes and they have these guys that don't match up perfectly with Illinois. I mean, we talked about EJ Liddell, but they have more guys like that. They have Dwayne Washington. They have CJ Walker. They have Kyle Young. They have Justice Suing. They're a really deep team that is great offensively. Illinois has to take advantage on the flip side because they have no one that can guard Kofi, and it's not even close.
Absolutely not.
We saw it with Hunter Dickinson just going to work against Ohio State. He got anything he wanted on that game, I think, 2 weeks ago. Now Kofi has the same opportunity. Kofi should get 25 points in this game. I don't think there's any reason why he shouldn't. It should be a 25-12 Shaq-esque game. People are alluding to him as mini Shaq for a reason. So go out there and do that. As long as Illinois does that, I feel confident that they should come out with a win. The real problems will come if turnovers start to become an issue.
The turnovers, that's, as an Illini fan, this season has made me lose my mind.
It's been nerve-wracking.
Yeah, Curbelo, sometimes Io, by the way. Io has struggled with turnovers a little, especially against like Michigan State, I think. Curbelo, and then look at Kofi when he gets like triple teamed inside. Those result in turnovers a lot too. And I think that Juwan Howard is a great coach. I think he's recruiting really well and he's doing really, a significantly better job than people thought he would in his second year. Ohio State is extremely well coached. I'm blanking on their coach's name now. I'm sorry.
Chris Holtman.
Thank you. I've said his name 100 times. Holman's a very good coach.
He is.
And I think that he will use that strategy on Kofi, double, triple teaming him down low. If Kofi, which I've seen a little bit now recently, can pass out of that with Trent, DeMonte, Grandison, Miller, Io, even Coleman Hawkins out on the wing ready to shoot a three, that could be extremely nice for Illinois on Saturday.
Yeah, and Illinois doesn't take a ton of threes, but they're a really good three-point shooting team.
Yes.
Because everyone can shoot, aside from really Andre Curbelo, among the guys that play, and Jordy.
And Jordy, yeah.
But Kofi, it's still a concern. If he can pass out, that'll be fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
You got to also realize, though, that Ohio State's one of the best teams in the country at keeping the ball clean. They don't turn it over a lot, so don't expect to win the turnover battle. My hope is that Illinois gets 14 or less turnovers. Because if you get into that Wisconsin range where you're turning it over 20 times, it's gonna be hard to make it up.
It really will. Yeah, no, I totally agree. So before we make some predictions, I want to ask you, what do you think that they're going to do defensively this time on Liddell? Because Kofi tries to cover him the last game. Sure, he hadn't been shooting well early in the year, but he goes 4 for 7 from 3. Why wouldn't he do it again? So do you think that Kofi's going to stay on him, or this time they're going to try DeMonte or Grandison, who switched off and were doing a very good job on a guy like Livers or Wagner yesterday? So what do you think defensively?
I'm glad you brought that up, that last point, because I think that's what they should do. I think Grandison should be guarding EJ Liddell from the jump.
Yes.
And you can put Kofi Coburn on Kyle Young, because Kyle Young can shoot the ball, but that's not his game. He's not a guy that takes a ton of shots, and you can get away with Kofi sagging a little bit on him. He's also not going to really take it off the bounce explosively, so Kofi can recover. It'll be fine. What I'm guessing they'll do is probably start Kofi on Liddell and maybe switch things up if we see a similar result at the beginning.
I really hope that he doesn't start on him, but if he does and Liddell scores 6, 7, 8 early, I'm really trusting Brad to make the adjustment to Grandison or DeMonte. I totally agree with you. Grandison should be covering him. I didn't realize Grandison was 6'6". Did you?
I thought he was kind of taller, to be honest.
I honestly didn't. I thought he was 6'3", and then a couple weeks ago, my buddy pointed it out to me. I was like, wow, I can't believe that. I mean, it doesn't surprise me at all. I just, for some reason, had it in my head that he was more just like a shooting guard.
Wow, I actually thought he was like 6'7"-ish, still around that height, but he's so versatile, which is why we think that I think he's 6'7", you think he's 6'3", because he's able to guard a guy like Isaiah Livers, and then he can come back the next game and guard EJ Liddell in the post, which... Oh, man. I mean, I'm just thinking about this. I'm so excited.
I'm really excited.
I'm excited for Saturday. I'm excited for the Big Ten tournament. I'm excited for the NCAA tournament because there's so much basketball left to be played.
Yeah, I think that the last thing I just want to say defensively looking back on this game, I did rewatch it and I was super disappointed. But between the 15-point deficit in the first half, the way they covered Lydell. And then the other one is, how about Justin Ahrens, the lefty three-point shooter? He averages 6 a game, and he scored 11 against Illinois.
He made some timely threes in the second
They
half,
did.
too.
He was, man, how many daggers did he hit? Holy moly. So if they cover him properly, cover Lydell properly, obviously I'm not going to make my prediction for another minute, but I think that Illinois will be a lot more comfortable come Saturday. All right.
Why don't we just make our predictions?
Let's go for it.
I think this is going to be a high-scoring affair. I don't think it's going to be like a Michigan game. I'm going to say 86-81 Illinois.
All right. I remember the Michigan-Ohio State game from last week was like 43-45 at halftime, finished about that high. Oh, this is... I wonder if because I'm going to be back on here tomorrow, so I wonder if my prediction will change. But for now, I agree with you. I think it's going to be a little bit more high-scoring. I think I'm going to go 82-72 Illinois. I think they're going to win this one by double digits. I'll go 82-73. They'll probably anger me and only win by 9.
Just a bad beat at the end.
I'll go 82-73. Illinois.
Okay, so you're a little more confident than I am.
Looking back, like I said, I rewatched the game about a week and a half ago, thinking about the matchups and just the way the team's progressing. Whether Iowa plays or not, my prediction is actually going to stay the same.
Yeah, I mean, weirdly, I kind of agree in that sense.
It's weird, isn't it?
Because Io coming back, it seems like just more of a game for him to get comfortable than it is like helping the team.
Yeah.
Based on the way they were playing lately.
I mean, Derek Piper, 24/7, his prediction when we woke up thinking Io might play, it was Michigan by 4. They say Io's out. He had Illinois as 14-point underdogs. They win by 23.
Yeah.
It's weird, isn't it?
It's strange.
Really weird.
I mean, I've never had an experience like this where you lose your best player and then you have an improbable win in this fashion.
Hey, it just shows you, like, you think Kofi's going to stay. If he stays next year and Trent stays for a 5th year, Illinois could be scary good next year. Let's worry about this year, though.
Oh, yeah.
All right, we're going to take a break real quick. When we get back, NBA talk. Love talking about that. That's next on Illini Drive. Welcome back into Illini Drive. All right, so every single time I talk about the NBA in here, Nithin, I wait to see, is this going to finally switch like I think it is, or is it going to stay the same? And it continues to stay the same. The Utah Jazz are clearly the best team in the NBA right now. They're up 3.5 games on the second best team.
Season, though. I think that's very important to state.
Yes, but the standing, I mean, does it surprise you a little bit? I mean, they're over in the West. They play a lot of very good teams, whether it's Denver, the LAs, whoever it is. And consistently, they're winning games, and they're up 3.5 on the rest of the NBA.
Yeah, it doesn't... it surprises me from what I thought at the beginning of the season. It doesn't surprise me a ton since about halfway through the year, because while they've lost some games a little bit of late, they're still playing the same brand of basketball. Really good three-point shooting team. Donovan Mitchell's stepped up this year. Mike Conley's been the game changer, though, because
totally agree.
He was bad. Like, he was really bad last year. And this year he's gone back to form, which now they have, I'd say, 4 guys you feel pretty comfortable with day in and day out, and then they got a ton of role players.
I think that I totally agree with you about Mike Conley. I think he's been a total difference maker. I know that last year he really did struggle, finding his groove there, and now he's playing great. His defense has been good. I think that Donovan Mitchell, maybe he's not scoring the most points, but I really think he's playing out of his mind. I think that he's been awesome. Yeah. I think Gobert just fits into his role so nicely, and it's really just a good team meshing together, right?
Oh, yeah. It's very Spurs-esque from early 2010s, but I want to ask you about the Suns, because I think the Suns are the bigger surprise. I mean, yes, they get Chris Paul, and they're coming off of a bubble where they go 8-0. Did this shock you? I mean, they're the 2 seed right now in the West.
You know what? This might be an unpopular opinion, but I'm not shocked at all.
Okay,
I think that Devin Booker is one of the most underappreciated guys in the NBA. That's a popular opinion. A lot of people think that.
Opinion. I'm kind of more in that boat.
Yeah, I think that Devin Booker is very good. He scores the ball probably at the top level, honestly, of the game. I think DeAndre Ayton's very good. And then just bringing in Chris Paul, who's a winner, period, end of sentence. He knows how to win with teams. I'm really not. The team, obviously, I'm surprised that the Lakers are clear. I thought the Suns were going to sit maybe at 4 or 5, but seeing them at the 2 seed right now, for some reason, just doesn't surprise me. I think they're going to play consistent basketball. I think they're going to play smart basketball. And like I said, with Chris Paul on your team, I think it's just full of winners.
Yeah, Chris Paul just doesn't go to a team that loses. I mean, we saw it last year. He kind of had a resurgence with OKC, but now he comes to another young team in Phoenix. They have a ton of great role players. They have the Cam Johnson, Mikal Bridges of the world that elevate this team. And you talked about it. Devin Booker's one of the best scorers in the league. So you're always going to get some value. The question really still is, can he lead a team? Which I don't think this year has answered it yet, but it shows he's a very, very good supporting player and a very, very good number 2.
I really don't think that Devin Booker can lead a team right now. I don't think that Chris Paul can like lead a team, but not in like superstar fashion.
He can't do it without anyone else.
Exactly. So that being said, like they're the number 2 team right now, but do I think that they're going to do anything in the playoffs besides maybe a first round victory? No. And obviously there's a long season. I mean, the All-Star break hasn't even hit yet. Like they're still playing and it's a long season.
If we're being honest, I don't even think they'd win the first round matchup just because they're
Really?
facing Denver. And
Denver's not going to but yes, yeah.
I don't think Denver's going to stay there, but because just the bottom playoff picture in the West is kind of all mixed together. But I mean, this is a good transition into the Bulls because Nikola Jokic lit up the Bulls 2 nights ago, and man, oh man, did he look good, but did the Bulls struggle?
It's like I don't have a ton of time to watch the NBA. So I usually watch like one game maybe, or one game a night, few games a week. I love watching Nikola Jokic. I think he's great. And now that being said, I watch a lot of highlights. Like I look at the box scores of NBA teams pretty much every day. Nikola Jokic is an amazing talent. I think that he's probably top 5 in MVP voting right now, right?
Yeah.
Maybe. Seeing the Bulls struggle like that after seeing a few good games in a row, obviously I think that the Bulls are headed in the right direction, but it just proves they're really not as good as some people may think they are, considering what happened against Denver.
Yeah, and I think it exposed a big flaw in the Bulls in that they can't really guard bigs.
Right.
Defense has been an issue the entire season, but we saw it when the Bulls played the Sixers. They played a pretty good game. It's just Joel Embiid took over, scoring 50 points.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't really recover from that, especially when Zach LaVine had such a terrible performance. Now in this game, Nikola Jokic, I think he had a near 40-point triple-double. And he's a guy that changes the game in more than just scoring and more than just passing and more than just rebounding. He does everything. And I think it doesn't concern me about the Bulls. I still see them in that sort of 7 to 10 range, playing in that play-in game. But it shows that this team does have some flaws that they will probably be exposed in the playoffs.
Right, because Lauri Markkanen is a power forward. He's not a true blue center, never been the greatest defensively. And then, like, Wendell Carter, he's only 6'9". Like, I know he's really long, but I've thought this from the beginning of the year. Like, there's a reason Embiid played so well and scored the way. I think he scored 51 or 53, right? Jokic, again, doesn't surprise me. Those are the 2 best centers in the league, and they both destroy you. Like, hey, isn't it also weird that, like, a week ago they were the 6th seed, now they're the 10th seed? The East is so weird.
Yeah, part of it's just because not enough games have been played, but also because if you look from 11 to, like, 4, there's, like, a 2-game difference in the standings. 3-game difference total in the standings.
Right.
And it's a clutter at this point.
It really is. I think that some of the teams surprised. Like Indiana started off really hot. Now they're way down. A lot of people thought Atlanta was going to be better, who are sitting at 11 right now.
Miami started really poorly, and now it looks like they're going to be somewhere in that top 5 range.
I think that Miami will be top 5. I think they're going to be exactly where they were last season, where they're in a 5-4 game. But I think they swept Indiana. Right in the 5-4. Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. But just back to the Bulls for a second. I mean, like Zach LaVine, awesome. Absolutely an all-star. Kobe White, I think the way he's developing as well, but I have a lot of concerns still.
I do too. Zach LaVine's been great. His defense has been one of the more unsung headlines of this season. He's actually committed to it. He's still not a great defender, but he's more in that average sort of range, which is fantastic. Kobe White is a little concerning for me because I think his best sort of play style would be as a sixth man, you come off the bench and you be just a flamethrower. And right now he's asked to be the number 2 guy on this team. The bigger issue is that they just don't have the talent quite yet.
Yeah, what I was going to say, there are holes missing where they can't be missed if you actually want to make a legitimate playoff push, right? I mean, like I said, what do you expect right now? 8-9 playoff game-ish. Or I'm sorry, play-in game-ish. Same thing is what I am. But like looking at the top 3, maybe even 4th, the Celtics teams in the East, they're just significantly better. And like you said, if you want Kobe White coming off the bench, I agree. I think that he is better in a 6-man role. Who's going to start instead of him right now?
Exactly. That's the ultimate issue. Like, you could maybe put Garrett Temple there, who's been solid this year.
Really solid.
But I'd rather see Kobe in that situation. I'd rather at least have him get experience. The overarching issue is that there's so many good role players on this team and not enough star talent.
Yeah, you have Zach LaVine, who's obviously your number 1, and then just totally drops off where you need someone besides Zach LaVine and you need these role players, and they just don't have it.
And injuries have hurt this team too. Larry Markkinen being hurt for a while, Wendell Carter being hurt for a while. At some point, this team will get fully healthy and they'll start to play better. Yeah. But I think the good news is that even though they're streaky at times, they're getting those win streaks. They won 5 of 6 before this 2-game losing streak. So there are positives you can point to throughout the season, and we're going to see it in the second half as well. Just get in that play-in game. That's really all you need.
I totally agree. I mean, remember that LA trip that they went on? They lost both games by a combined 3 or 4 points, maybe 5. Like, they got better on that trip. And the more that this team plays together when they're healthy, exactly what you said, they're going to mesh together. And again, obviously not saying they're going to make any type of playoff push, but like if they could mesh together and then like win a play-in game and get to face the 76ers or whatever, it would be a very good stepping stone to what the Bulls could be in a couple of years if they do end up adding the talent. Because I really like Billy Donovan.
I do too.
I think he's the guy that I wanted. I know Brendan didn't want him. Gabby was pretty indifferent. I don't know about you. I wanted Billy Donovan. I think he's done a good job with a young team.
Yeah, I kind of wanted Kenny Atkinson because I thought he'd be a good boulder of young talent. But Billy's proven that he can too. Like, great college coach, and he's come in and filled some needs that the Bulls had last year with Jim Boylan, because it wasn't good.
Get rid of Garpax and then get rid of Boylan too. I think that, like we said, this is the first year after Garpax, so Bulls fans can't expect too much. But I think Billy Donovan really wants to be here. I think that he got hired relatively fast. I mean, as soon as the talk started, right, it pretty much became official. So
yeah, I kind of expected him to go back to college a little bit. Really? Maybe take a year off and try to look for a job because he was so successful at Florida. But I'm glad he's in Chicago. He just seems like a great coach for what this team needs.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. So looking at the rest of the NBA, I mean, 76ers still in that one spot. Nets haven't caught up to him yet, but now it's only a half a game difference. What do you think of the Nets with James Harden?
They're good right now. If I had to pick a team to come out of the East, I'd probably pick them.
Well, KD hasn't been playing, correct?
He hasn't, and James Harden and Kyrie have been looking great, and Kyrie specifically has been incredible because we've seen Harden thrive as the guy and just ISOing, throwing lobs to guys like DeAndre Jordan. He did it with Clint Capella a ton, but Kyrie isn't getting involved in the drama aspect of it, which is fantastic to see.
Do you think that when KD and Kyrie started the year, I thought they looked fantastic. When Harden first came, I think it was KD and James Harden. Now it's James and Kyrie. Do you think that the three of them playing together is too much star power on the court, or at the end of the day when they're all healthy, do you think it's not going to matter?
So ultimately, it is a concern that they don't have enough depth and they don't play enough defense. And in the playoffs, that's going to hurt you as a team. And when you're playing those three guys together, how are they going to mesh? Because the nice thing is that you have the two most ball-dominant guys playing together right now, and it's working. But you're going to add in the best player of the three in Kevin Durant. So how does that add? I mean, Kevin Durant has fit in with other star players. We saw it with Golden State specifically, where Steph Curry and Klay just filled him in nicely. But it's a completely different situation because Steph Curry and Klay Thompson are two of the best superstars to play along with because they don't always need the ball. They play great off-ball basketball. James Harden and Kyrie Irving aren't like that.
No,
so
they're not.
I want to see if this continues when Durant comes back. My guess is that it will to a certain degree, but I still don't think they're better than either of the LA teams at this point.
I think that KD going to the Warriors proved that someone's got to take a step back, and Klay Thompson did that perfectly. I love Klay Thompson, by the way. I think he's one of my favorite players. But the thing is, his
numbers were the exact same as they were most seasons. It's just in the playoffs he didn't shine as much.
Right, he took the step back, and he was fine with that. And I think that if I had to choose one person for it to be, for me, it'd be Kyrie, where you're more of a ball handler. Kyrie doesn't want to do that.
Kyrie's not going to do that.
He's not going to do that. So what are you going to ask? James Harden, the best scorer in the league, or KD, the best player on the team, to do that? That's where you run into some trouble to me.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a fun wrinkle in the playoffs. I don't think it's really going to play a factor, though, until then, because this team's going to probably be a 1 or a 2 seed. Worst case scenario, 3 seed, because Milwaukee Bucks still are in shouting distance.
They're really good, too.
Yeah, but I totally agree with you, Josh. This is just going to be a fun storyline to follow throughout the playoffs and especially down the stretch of the season.
It's fun to watch the NBA when there's not a clear best team. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean, we saw it last year. The Lakers, in some people's eyes, were the title favorite, but I don't think most people would have just straight up said they're the favorite.
I didn't take them.
Yeah, I thought the Clippers were going to win last year.
Me too.
And they disappointed. But once we get into April, when we don't have to worry about the Illini, after they've won the national title game, we can move on.
Nithin. Very good.
It's going to be nice to see what this playoff looks like, because in both conferences, there are, I'd say, 5 to 6 teams like you're fairly excited about watching on a nightly basis.
I totally agree. All right, I think that's going to wrap it up today. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Illinois back at it again Saturday afternoon against Ohio State. From Nithin and Josh, this has been Illini Drive.